Okay, so welcome to the slightly different setting today. It's a nice background. You're probably going to see this more often because I'm going to be moving my flat soon to another part of this building, which is here. But more about that when it happens. Okay, so before getting to the main subject of this video, I sometimes do this because I don't intend to make a main video about the subject, but I feel it's important enough to include or at least to mention. Another horrifying attack today. Afghanistan, at least some reports suggest as many as 80 people killed. It's a tragedy of the world in which we live that this is a major carnage. It completely gets swamped out by other news, at least on the British networks. There is this debate about Western media, what prioritises and its focus, and so on. I'll probably make another video at some point about that if I can. But yeah, that's just news that's broken today. Yesterday's attack in Munich, I actually made a video in preparation for that being a would-be terrorist attack. I think it turns out to have been a spray shooting as opposed to a terrorist attack. Still a tragedy, still awful, but not ISIS related. Anyway, to get to the main subject of this video, it looks like Owen Smith has basically pandered to feminism, and I'm disappointed but not overly surprised by that. Um, just give you a bit of context for our international viewers. Owen Smith is the man who is vying to take on Jeremy Corbyn to be leader of the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn has been leader for less than a year, but he's already facing enormous internal pressure from his party. And there's a massive split developing between the members of the party, who are very, very much in favour of Mr. Corbyn, and the parliamentary MPs, or the majority of parliamentary MPs. Now, I'm not going to get into a lengthy video about Labour's internal politics because I've already focused on that. But I want to talk a little bit about Owen Smith and his latest kind of PR messages. Now, when I heard Owen Smith's first leadership speech, I was quite impressed. I thought he sounded quite capable, he looked like a leader. He actually looks a bit to me like a younger Francois Hollande. There's a physical resemblance there. Both have glasses, slightly bald in the middle, dark hair, so there's a similarity. That's not here or there, of course, just an observation. But um, that speech, I was quite impressed. I thought it was a good centrist speech. It hit a lot of important points. But I did say at the time that I would be foolhardy to absolutely endorse any politician. Now, at the moment around the UK, I'm looking for a good, strong centrist leader. Owen Smith keeps saying he's a socialist, so that would make him much more to the left than himself. Um, but his supporters would say he's more electable than Jeremy Corbyn. That may be true. But today he's come out with with these sort of PR messages and statements about feminism and about bringing women into his cabinet and so on. And he's talking about half of cabinet ministers being women. To be honest, this is getting really, really boring now. Not from Mr. Smith, just in general. It's very boring, and I'm tired of certain politicians and the media constantly pandering to it. Just to give a bit of background, it's actually only a third of Theresa May's cabinet is women. Despite her calling herself a feminist and all the media speculation, it's actually a third of her cabinet are women. 8 women, 16 men. Here's the thing, right? The majority of MPs are men. I think it's something like just over two-thirds. Not sure about the exact numbers, but it's around two-thirds. Now, with the numbers that you have, is Mr. Smith really proposing to elevate half of his cabinet in a would-be Smith premiership? Would he have half his cabinet as women just because it looks good, because it sounds good? You see, to me, that's phony equality. It's not really equality. I believe the real aspect of equality here is meritocracy. And this is where I believe the Tories have been more successful overall, because they haven't focused on tokenism, at least to a lesser extent. I'm not going to say they've been completely devoid of it, but to a lesser extent. Labour is absolutely obsessed by quotas. It's absolutely obsessed by approaches like all women shortlists. What the Labour Party need to understand and what media pundits need to understand, and what feminist lobbies need to understand, is that the vast majority of Jill and Joe public do not care. They really don't care. A lot of people don't even know who the local MP is, let alone if they're a man or a woman. Now, I've voted for women in my life, I've voted for men in my life, and I can honestly, hand on heart, say that at no time did I consider their gender. I think it would be absurd looking at someone's gender. And when feminists talk about men talking like dinosaurs, if they take issue with these sort of things, who is really being the dinosaurs? Actually, it's a feminist position that is archaic and backward because they're the ones who have more of a 1950s mindset whereby they're actually focusing on gender rather than the individual person. So when I hear Labour MPs say, like, oh, Angela Eagle would be great because she was a woman. Now, she hasn't got the position, but I'm thinking, well, tell me something more than that. If I'm a Labour Party member, I want to hear more than what gender she is. Yeah, she's a woman. Very good. Tell me what she's going to do. Tell me what her background is. Now, as it turns out, Angela Eagle actually was quite an experienced politician. I think she probably could have been later. But the mistake she made was using that pitch to form a big part of her campaign. Now, Owen Smith obviously couldn't do that because he is a man. So he's got no choice but to pander to feminist lobbies because the power that they have in left wing politics is immense. It's absolutely immense. It's a complete myth that feminists have no power. They have enormous power. They could destroy people's careers if they don't think exactly the way these lobbies want them to. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think that politicians need to think for themselves. Yes, they can have advisors. Yes, they need to look at the traction of what is going on in the environment in which they're working. But I'm disappointed that Owen Smith has gone down this line. I'm not really surprised because most left wing politicians will at some point. He's just going along the Justin Trudeau line, like it's tokenism, as far as I'm concerned. And that's the message it sends out. Now, I'm not saying that when women are appointed to a cabinet under these sort of circumstances, they're not capable of doing the job. That's not my position. But I'm saying that is the perception that is sent out. Now, if Owen Smith, let's say for the sake of argument, he appointed a female MP and he said, I've appointed this minister or I've appointed this MP as Home Secretary or Chancellor or whatever it would be, because she's very capable at management. She's a very strong constituency MP. She's very smart. She's very popular. And, if he went through a list of reasons, I think, okay, that's his prerogative. He's made a good choice. There's also a misconception going on. If you listen to the way feminists talk, you would think that we're kind of in this grey Victorian world, which is entirely dominated by men. It is true that there are more male MPs, but actually women are very well represented at the moment. The Prime Minister is a woman. The Home Secretary is a woman. The Justice Secretary is a woman. Um, there is women in positions of power. First Minister of Scotland, First Minister of Northern Ireland, the leader of the Welsh Nationalist Party, the leader of the Green Party. Um, and when feminists send out this image, it's like they send out this perception like women are kept down. That's why I think the Women's Equality Party is a bit of a joke. Because, firstly, they're a single issue party. Secondly, they're a divisive party. I believe that is wrong. I believe that parties need to be very careful. Yes, they have to tell the truth as they see it. Yes, they have to stand up for their conviction. But if your entire pitch is about dividing people, there's something very wrong there. Now, the Women's Equality Party will insist that they're not sexist against men. They will insist that they have male supporters and all the rest of it. In the end of the day, if your party is catering only to one gender, you are by definition a divisive party. I mean, I don't suspect that they want to be a party of government. I suspect that they're a protest party. But what are they protesting about? There are issues that impact women disproportionately, but there are also issues that impact men disproportionately. And it shouldn't be controversial to point that out. So it gets really tiresome. So, yeah, I mean, I've left a few messages on the Labour Party page, on Owen Smith's campaign page. firm, direct. These are not trolling messages, they're just very honest messages about, I hope you're not going to introduce all women shortlists. I think all women shortlists are wrong. A, they discriminate against men, they're fundamentally sexist, no question about that, because they're basically saying if you're a man in that particular area and you actually agree with the Labour Party, you have centre left views on many issues, could be welfare, it could be unemployment, it could be any sort of issue, but you happen to be male, your local Labour Party is saying, no, you can't stand because of your gender. It's discrimination, plain and simple. When feminists come out and say, oh, we don't have a level playing field, it's nonsense. It's a complete lie. And it's a sort of divisive rhetoric that they use to try and present this victimhood mentality. And I think it's reprehensible, to be quite honest. They don't have a level playing field. What a lot of nonsense. There is not a single law in this country that discriminates against women. Not a single law. And any business that did would soon be exposed by the tabloids anyway. So I just don't accept that there is a culture of anti female sexism in this country in that sense, in a sense of discrimination. It's nonsense. And I've seen very little evidence for it. Um, if there was a case that there actually, I could understand, like, if Parliament was 99% men and if Cabinet was like 80% men or something like that, then it's like, okay, there does need to be a drive to get more women into Parliament. But in the end of the day, maybe it just isn't, it could just be the fact that not that many women are interested in politics. I better not say that because the feminists will come out with pitchforks and kill me for saying that. But the fact of the matter is, men and women are different. Of course, there's women who are interested in politics, but this fantasy land 50-50 quota is just a lot of crap. I'll say something else, by the way. If cabinet was 60% women, I wouldn't be yelling and shouting about, oh, we need to make more men, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. If they were capable at the job, and so long as men weren't discriminated against, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. In fact, there is a parliament, I believe it's Rwanda, that is actually a majority women. I'm not sure what the reasoning for that is. I mentioned it in the other video. I don't know if that's connected to the genocide, if more men were killed, or I'm not sure what the reason for that is. But the bottom line is this: if you think someone should be elected because they're a woman, then you're the sexist. It's not people who are taking issue with that who are sexist. You're the sexist. Because you're basically saying that is the only reason they should be elected. In a way, I'm pleased Angela Eagle lost because, the pitch that she was making, elect me because I'm a woman, was just a lot of crap. Theresa May and Andrea Leadsom may have mentioned that, but they never ever said, I should be leader of the Conservative Party because I'm a woman. They made their pitches because of, in the case of Theresa May, she'd been Home Secretary for 6 years. In the case of Andrea Leadsom, she was going on her Brexit credentials. They did mention the fact, okay, that they knew it was historic, second woman prime minister, but they never made the pitch, elect me because I am a woman. And that's where Labour is making a fatal mistake, and they cannot see it. They just cannot see it. And this can go over into other areas as well. I think one reason why Barack Obama was so successful in 2008, and I know purists would say, well, he's a mixed race president, but essentially he came from a black background, and so his father was black, right? So he was, in that sense, essentially the first black president. Now, when Obama campaigned in 2008, he didn't totally discard his black heritage. That would have been wrong and misguided. But he never said, I should be the first black president. He pitched himself on progressive issues, which is why the Democrats elected him. That was a very smart move. Obama's a very smart guy. That's how he got into the White House. He never said, because there have been guys in the past, and women, um, who had ran basically on the pitch of being a black candidate. Alan Keyes, Jesse Jackson, and so on. Actually, maybe not so much Alan Keyes. I'm just remembering he was a Republican. And again, the Republicans, black Republicans, tend to focus less on that and focus more on their individual credentials. But Jesse Jackson ran in '84, and I think he didn't get it because he was picturing the fact he was focusing on his blackness. And I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing your experience as a woman or a black man or a minority, another person from an ethnic minority background. But when it becomes the only way that you're defining yourself, then you've got no arguments. Like, what are you offering the public? I've got Northern Irish background. If I ever wanted to stand for major office in a British government, I'd technically be in a minority because it would be mostly English cabinet members. So, but I'm not going to say, I should be prime minister because I'm Northern Irish. You can't pitch it that way. You can't, you have to be defined by more than your demographic, by more than your gender, more than your ethnicity, more than your sexual orientation or religion. If those are the only ways that you're pitching yourself. Another example of a successful Tory, Sajid Javid, business secretary, at least he was under the last government. He's now a community secretary. He happens to be the son of a Pakistani bus driver, a bit like Mr. Khan in London. Again, Sadiq Khan. Neither Sadiq Khan or Sajid Javid, who are both fairly prominent politicians, have used the fact that they are from Pakistani Muslim backgrounds. Neither of them have really done that, and I respect them for that. And it's why, in my view, they got to the respective positions. If you constantly say, feel sorry for me because I'm a minority, or I should be in this position because I'm a woman or because I'm a minority, people are just going to say, well, why should we give you a sympathy vote? It's I just think it's very bad politics. I believe it's divisive politics. I believe it's a politics of tokenism, and I think it's wrong. And the irony about this is there are many, many talented women out there. There's many, many talented ethnic minority people out there. So there's no need for this sort of tokenism anyway. If I was prime minister, I would be looking at the people who are most skilled for the jobs. And of course, I'd be looking at a diverse cabinet, but that wouldn't be for tokenism. I would be looking first and foremost, and I sure as hell wouldn't be making public statements like, I'm going to have a 50-50 men women cabinet. I would be letting the actions, you know, make much more of a statement than sound bites. And that's what really disappoints me about Owen Smith's position today. And I will say it is probably the number one reason I'm put off the Labour Party, because I think they've fundamentally got too much sexist feminist influence. I just find it very, very tiring, boring, and frustrating. Um, and if a Labour person comes to my door, I'll be very polite. If they say, are you voting Labour? I'll say, well, to be honest, I don't like the sexist position your party takes. And the thing is, I support many Labour policies. I'm a centrist. Some areas I'm centre left, so there are Labour policies I definitely support. But it just disappoints me that they are so obsessed by this. Incidentally, Jeremy Corbyn, to give him his credit though, I think Corbyn has more substance on these issues because when he was talking about the issue of equality, he was given really, really close case examples like the Dagenham strike in the 60s, which was made in the film Made in Dagenham. And he was citing really specific examples. So at least you could work on that. At least you could say, okay, well, he's given examples for that. Owen Smith, at the moment, it looks like he's just pandering to feminist lobbies by making these gestures like, oh, my daughter lives in a world where women get paid less than men. That's another misconception, by the way. The vast majority of jobs, men and women get paid equally. And that's something I think again, the feminist movement is misleading people with because this notion that women are not paid the same as men is very misleading. As I understand it, yes, there is a bit of a discrepancy in the financial sector, and it is true that male CEOs probably overall get paid more than female CEOs. But the point is, we're talking about people at the top, we're talking about a relatively small number of people. The vast majority of jobs, you go into a restaurant, the male waiters and the female waitresses will be paid exactly the same. You go into Starbucks, the male and female staff will be paid exactly the same. And that is true of almost every line of work. That's something that this whole gender pay gap debate completely ignores. It also ignores the fact that some of the most high risk jobs are dominated by men. I'm not saying they're unilaterally held by men. You do get women workers in those jobs as well, but it is a fact that most soldiers are male, most oil rig workers are male, and in other parts of the world, most miners are male. Those are examples of very dangerous jobs. So you have to look at everything with this. What I would conclude with is in this country, there are issues that impact men and women disproportionately, and I really staunchly believe that men's issues have long been ignored. I think it is an utter disgrace that there is a Minister for Women and Equalities. Why not just a Minister for Equalities? When feminists say, oh, men already rule the world, they're completely ignoring the fact that there are areas men disproportionately suffer. And it frankly really, really makes me angry because it's a misconception. It's outright sexism. It's basically saying male areas where men disproportionately are impacted doesn't matter. It's one reason I hate modern feminism, not feminists, not individuals. I'm talking about the movement. I'm talking about their hypocrisy, their lies, and their divisive attitude. And unfortunately, too many politicians are kind of shackled by it. It's not entirely their fault because if they did speak out and say, well, actually, I'm going to recruit, if a male politician was to say that, I'm going to choose the best people for the job, the press would say, oh, why are you not pandering to women? They would say those words, obviously. The press is just as much to blame. When Theresa May got elected, about half of the coverage was about women in her cabinet. Give me a break. Just, it really pisses me off. And the thing is, this is not about men versus women. Many, many, many women out there would agree with everything I'm saying. It's an insult to women as well, because it's saying that you have to be kind of brought in, and you're not brought in because of your merit, you're brought in because of your gender. That's meritocracy has to be the answer. Has to be, not 50-50 quotas.